Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, he was AI before AI was cool. The great Tom Munley is in the studio. He's the CEO of Analytics8. His journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
All right, AI is the buzzword. Everybody's talking about it. There's probably an AI expert on every street corner in Dallas-Fort Worth. But Tom Munley was AI before AI was cool. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, let's first, we met at a MSU event. The DFW Spartans had an event, and you were the keynote speaker. So when you graduated from MSU, were you thinking about IT? Were you thinking about, AI back then?
I can't say I was thinking about AI. I don't think I knew what AI was in 1997, but I was definitely thinking about IT. So I started my career with Arthur Andersen and their business consulting group, and I started doing implementations of really accounting software to begin with. And so all of that was, sort of aligned with what I studied at Michigan State in accounting, and I just recognized I didn't want to be an accountant, the IT side of things, and working in consulting versus auditor tax sounded a lot more interesting.
Yeah. All right. Let's give a little history, because I think AI has been around for a long time. Nobody was really talking about it until 3 years ago. But I remember my Bank of America would have a bot talking to me saying, I can answer that question for you. Has AI been around for a long time?
The concept of AI has been around, I think, going back to Isaac Asimov, and the science fiction world of the 1950s. I think where it started to take hold in commercial enterprises, right? So from a business perspective, has been, was more along the lines of machine learning first, which is how do I start predicting things, and then it became, okay, well, how do I extend that? And that's where AI started to really grow more of the grassroots, and it became a little bit of a novelty. The chatbot is a great example. I mean, that's one of the first use cases that people said, hey, I can start to automate some of these things that I used to have a person do. And I can share a story from an interesting client about one of the things that they did in the past. But I think that started getting people to accept the fact that, hey, I may have the interaction with an automated bot that's going to give me or help me faster than waiting for that next available customer service agent.
Yes.
And so one of the early case studies that we had was a client. It was actually a hospital system out west, and they were looking for ways to, basically provide better care for, certain demographics. And so one of the things they identified was urinary tract infections, for women. That was a very hard thing for women to, want to pick up the phone when they're sitting in an office or at a school and say, hey, I've got this problem. Yes. So we helped them with a chat agent that would effectively allow one nurse practitioner sitting in a call center to handle multiple requests at a time via chat, right? So you could authenticate who they were. That person would, do pre-qualification through questions through the bot, and then it would turn over to the nurse practitioner who technically had to actually write the prescription for them to do that. But the reviews were off the charts, because all these women who previously would have to find time to go into a doctor's office or find time to make a private phone call, who because of their job or their personal situation couldn't or wouldn't do that, now could do that all via a chat.
Wow. Okay, we're going to pull up your website, and as we scroll down the website, tell us the origin of the name. Analytics8. That's a unique name.
Well, the origin of the name actually comes, Analytics8 was initially founded in Australia. And so that was the origin of the name. I don't know where the 8 came from, other than I think it looks like infinity if you turn it on its side, right? Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of a tie in there. But as they went ahead and expanded, so there was Australia, Analytics8 Australia, then Analytics8 in the US, and Analytics8 in the UK. And so they kept the name because there's value in having that brand recognized around the world. And then eventually, because there was different legal entities, Analytics8 Australia is sold to Accenture, and then Analytics8 UK and the US are still around.
And on your website, you talk about some of your customers. You have some really big Fortune 500 companies on your roster, but you also work with small to mid-size?
Yes, we span the range. So, I mean, we have one pre-revenue company right now, which has been in business, I say in business, for 8 years doing research in the chemical space. They're getting ready to come to market with their products. And so they came to us and said, hey, how do we make sure we've got the right data strategy in place to not only leverage what we can do from an AI standpoint to figure out how do we do a better job researching and pointing our researchers in the right direction, but also how do we begin to assess the market? Which as a consultant, I thought, didn't you understand the market before you went down the path of 7 years of research and development, but not my place to question. And so that, and then all the way up to literally the Fortune 10, where we're doing, more hands-on engineering work for them to augment some of their teams.
And tell us how you work with your clients. So do you work with the C-suite all the way down to the rank and file employee?
All of the above, yeah. So typically, it depends on how we got engaged with the client. So if we're working with a partner, a technology partner like a Databricks or Microsoft, a lot of times they will make the introduction for us, and we'll work with whoever they're talking with. If it's something that comes in organic through our website, which thank you for showing that, oftentimes it's people that are looking for broader strategy help. And so a lot of times that will be a C-suite member of the organization, or somebody who is a vice president of data and analytics who says, hey, we need to look at our data strategy. Can you guys come out and help us do that? Especially now we're seeing that question come up more and more with AI being so topical and an area that a lot of people are looking to make investments in.
Well, something that I'm hearing a lot is employees are frustrated because they don't really know how to harness the power of AI, and the boss says, oh, you've got to do this. Well, you don't give a chainsaw to a 3-year-old. So are companies doing a good job implementing AI? I mean, is there a disconnect, and where you guys might come in and help smooth things out?
100%, Deb. I think you're spot on. I think there's a lot of companies that don't necessarily prescribe AI, but they say we have to have an AI initiative. So it's left to not necessarily the C-suite, but a lot of the directors and below to go figure out, well, what are the initiatives that we're going to do with AI? And one of the challenges you see in that is, first off, they'll start saying, hey, well, I'm going to go drop this presentation into ChatGPT and see what it gives back to me, right? Oh, look at how great this is. This is perfect. And then they don't proof it, and they present the presentation, and there's things that are wrong. And that's the hallucination effect that AI presents a real challenge with, because they went and used the free version. They didn't use a proprietary version that they're paying for, that you can point to certain data sources and restrict what's going to be used for that. The second problem is, sometimes even when you have you've got a corporate license for Claude, let's say, and you say, Claude, how do I do this? Well, if Claude's not pointed and given the right access to the right data within that organization, you can also get the wrong answer, right? Because in that situation, you may have had access to like 2 systems, but for security reasons or just lack of awareness, nobody built the connection between Claude and those other data sources to give the holistic and correct answer in those situations. And so one of the challenges, I think, when people start talking about AI is, well, where do I begin, right? And so oftentimes they'll say, well, I want to start using it, but that's not necessarily the best thing. To use your chainsaw example, like I could use a chainsaw to cut and trim my bushes, but I'd rather use a hedge clippers because it's going to be a little bit easier and a little bit more precise. And when it comes to data and the volumes that we're talking about, especially for some of our Fortune 500 clients, that's a lot of data that you have to start processing. And so now all of a sudden, and the way the pricing works for some of these AI models today is, there's tokens, and you pay for so many tokens. And so I think it was Uber who famously came out a couple months ago and said, yeah, we've already spent our entire token budget for the year. And I think it was the end of April. And so like that's a very real economic problem that they now have. And they're going to say, we're going to ratchet some of this back. So I think that unlicensed, go do whatever you can with AI is going to start being peeled back to much more targeted. All right, what are we doing? Are we being smart about it? And that's one of the things that if you look at our website, you'll see we focus on, look, we want to take whatever ambition you've got, whether that's data, AI, or analytics, and we want to make sure, how are you getting actual measurable business value for it? Because without getting some value for it, that's a great exercise, but that's not necessarily what we want to do from a business perspective.
Absolutely. We were talking before the show, and you were sharing a success story for a client from Michigan. Will you share that with us?
Yeah. So one of my very early clients that I did an accounting systems implementation for, and I think this is a great example of illustrating. You do a project, you're not sure necessarily what you're going to get out of it. And in this case, it was a client that we were working with as a big manufacturer, and the goal was for them to reduce inventory. And so 6-month projects, we do all the hard work. We get them live. I get a call from the CFO 2 months later, and she's raving about the project. And I'm thinking, this is fantastic. I can't wait to hear about how much inventory is reduced. And she's like, oh no, we haven't even touched inventory yet. She goes, but just the automated sending out of collection notices to customers who haven't paid us resulted in $6 million coming in, within the first 2 months. And this is a privately held company. And the CEO couldn't have been happier about the project, and was wondering what else could we do for them. So
I think that's brilliant. As I mentioned off the top of the show, we met at a DFW Spartans event. Let's show this picture because this is just a week ago. One of the things you talked about to the group was security and risks. Why don't you go into that?
Yeah, so I gave the example before of, somebody wants to take a presentation and just drop it into ChatGPT or into Claude. And that seems great. It's going to improve it. It's going to make it better. But you have to understand that when you do that, and I'll use Claude as the example, like they are going to take that and they're going to store that away and they're going to train their model on what you've got there. So the risk you run is that you drop a very specific presentation. And I think the example I gave is how to build a news network. Yes. Now all of a sudden somebody goes into Claude and says, hey, can you give me a plan for how to build a news network? Now, it may not necessarily give you your exact plan that you dropped in, but it may share a very similar it provided you in terms of the improved output. And that goes back to one of the challenges that we have with the free versions of these softwares, just like Google. Yes. If you're not paying for it, like you are the product, right? I think you have to be conscious of the fact that when you use some of these, you don't control, especially the free versions, I should say, you don't control what's going on with the data and the files that you're putting in there. So it creates a backdoor risk for you from a security standpoint.
And, the internet changed the world. Is AI like bigger than the internet in terms of like the future?
Well, I don't know that you could say it's bigger than the internet because the internet is is part of the foundation, right? You couldn't really have AI without the foundation of the internet and the connectivity that it created to enable some of the large language models to search and crawl all over, right? Because they are based on all sorts of different websites, Reddit being one of the biggest ones that's out there that educates and fuels the learning for those large language models. But I think where AI becomes much more interesting and compelling is it's going to be a lot more empowered than the internet. If you think about where we were at from an internet standpoint, it's great. I can go online. I can order, shoes. I can have food delivered. I can order, an Uber to take me wherever I want to go. That's fantastic. But it's not empowered to say, hey, you know what? You go ahead and make that financial trade for me. Go ahead and liquidate all of my 401k. And so when people start thinking about true agentic AI and empowering an agent to make those decisions and take action for you, I think that introduces a whole level of risk for us. I mean, one of the things that I think is very interesting is the concept of the intelligent home, right? Having your lights and having your security system and pool or sprinklers all connected via an agent that operates that for you. Well, that's great until that agent doesn't realize you're throwing a party and says, oh, it's really hot and dry today. I'm going to run the sprinklers to cool down the grass. Well, that's an unintended consequence. And I think what AI offers us right now is a lot of unforeseen consequences of what it's going to do for us. So I think being judicious in where we're using AI is incredibly important.
And I think we're probably in the Model T era of AI. This is the infancy. I mean, it gets smarter every year, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And not even every year. I would say it gets smarter every month. When you see the release, and I think this is one of the more interesting things about AI, when you see the releases that are coming so fast from especially ChatGPT and Claude and Cursor, those companies are innovating at an astounding rate. So before you can even learn and understand what are the capabilities of this version, there's going to be a new version out. And then you've got to figure out, well, what can I do with that version? Wow. And so one of the challenges in any technology project that we see, especially for businesses, is how long does it take the organization to learn, to build the muscle memory of, okay, this is how I now use this application, which was built and rolled out, because guess what? The AI agent will be educated faster, it will move, it will change, and now maybe I don't understand what it's going to allow itself to do. And part of that is, when we talk about how to get the most out of AI, it's how do I make sure that I'm empowering that agent to deliver the outcomes I want, but not necessarily empowering it so much that it delivers a result which might be detrimental to the business or the organization.
Are colleges and universities doing enough to prepare young people for this world of AI?
I don't envy the challenge that colleges and universities have right now in terms of AI being a shortcut to students and what they're doing from an academic integrity standpoint. I won't say that they're cheating, but there's academic integrity challenges there. Sure. I think they're all doing their best to enable it as much as possible, but there's a balancing act. And one of those things that I know we talked about at that Michigan State event is, how do you get somebody to learn how to use that technology? And one of the things we've seen in our business is, those first year hires out of college, they're not necessarily needed with AI right now, because AI can do a lot of what a first year consultant used to be able to do for us. And so what we really need are 3 to 4 year people who've got experience, who maybe understood how to do development, how to have a conversation around the workflow that a client wants to build.
Yes.
but I can't pay them for 2 years to do nothing while they learn that. So I think that's a challenge, and I know I don't think I'm alone in the labor market when I say that. Like, that's going to be a real challenge for us as a country, because now all of a sudden I've got people that are graduating that seemingly have the right background, but they don't have the actual hands-on experience to review what AI is kicking out and say, this is good output, or no, this is wrong. You need to rework this.
Right.
And I know we were talking before, and I gave the example of the gentleman who runs delivery for us at Analytics8. He said, yeah, well, I dropped the same file in twice, so I got the wrong answer. Like, the only reason he caught that was because he knew the data so well. He knew what he was looking for. He's done the job for years, that it was obvious to him. Now, if I had asked, a brand new out of college consultant or analyst to do that, then I said, well, yeah, well, that's what it said. It's got to be correct. This isn't like Excel where it's like, okay, I can add those those cells up and see that crystal clear, because there's a little bit of a black box that goes into that model in the back end.
All right, Tom, we have a couple minutes left, so look into the camera on the left. That's the CEO or C-suite executive who needs to bring you in. Give us a call to action.
So my first question is going to be, what are the outcome you're looking to drive, right? So from a business perspective, what outcome do you want to drive? And then I'm going to help you figure out how AI plays a role in it. And that doesn't necessarily mean we get to skip the hard work of fixing your data, fixing the sources of your data, which is inevitably something that people in the past never had to address, because they could always just point to the reports which they manually generated or worked around. I mean, Excel still runs a lot of the businesses out there in America today. We want to make sure that when we build a solution, you're getting the outcome that you want from a business perspective. And that means having a hard conversation on what are you looking to drive from a results perspective, and not just doing technology for technology's sake.
Outstanding. Tom Munley, thanks for coming on the show. We're going to end with his website, which is analytics8.com. The great Tom Munley. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.